Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge,
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
and let's talk horror. So today we are joined by the amazing Chad Ferrin. Chad, how you doing today, man?
Great. Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
We are
absolutely.
super stoked to have
Hmm.
you. Um, but Chad, before we talk about why you're here, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You are the director of Ad Kemper, the horrifying true story of Ed Kemper, a cunning and sadistic serial killer shaped by childhood abuse, who's charming. He's so it's almost like an Ed Gein type thing. Like he's so charming that you can't help but think the best of him. But he's done some grotesque things. He has an obsession with murder, mutilation, and the ultimate act of revenge on the people that wronged him, especially women, and most importantly, his own mother.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes, he did
this
have
is
mother
something.
issues.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
clearly.
yeah. And this is going to have a limited theatrical release on April 4th. So just a couple days, guys. But if you can't make it out to the theater, if it's not playing anywhere close to you, it will be available on VOD on April 8th.
Mhm.
So make sure that you're checking it out. But first, let's talk a little bit about this film.
So what is the difference between like a nonfiction and a fiction story for you to like write?
Well, for this one, it was, written like 20 years ago by Stephen Johnson, who had written Ed Gein,
Hmm.
Hillside Strangler, Ted Bundy. I mean, he was a true crime expert. And
Yeah.
the script came across my desk, and I couldn't put it down. It was amazing. From a producer named Mike Muscal, who produced a lot of Stephen's work. And it was just one of the timing was right for me to do it. And, we worked out a deal, and then I rewrote the script just to kind of get I knew the budget we had to work with, and just kind of
Sure.
honing it to the number we had and the time frame we had to do it in, and trying to keep true to the material, and to the whole mother son dynamic I really wanted to focus on more, because those are things I could relate to personally, having kind of a troubled childhood. So it's taking those things and kind of just melding them together and making the best thing we could in the time we had.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always love like true crime, like
Yep.
stuff like that. It's so interesting to me. Like the psychological part of it is it's really awesome.
Scares the poop out of me.
Yeah.
Uh,
That I like it or that
yes, both. Um, but and when you're doing a movie like this, obviously it's based on a true story.
Sure.
So when you're doing your casting process, were you a part of the casting process? And if so, were you looking more for someone that looked and resembled Ed, or were you looking more for just the best person for the role?
Well, you kind of open a casting call, and then you see who you can get, and then we put it out. Guys who are 6'9" and 200 pounds, whatever, and kind of put out those stats and kind of threw out a whole net. And then pretty soon that was such a limited amount of guys, and then you just said, well, if he's over 6 feet, bring him in. We'll put lifts, and so you kind of try to change that a little bit. And then I had worked with Brandon previously on a couple of films, and he was fantastic. So I had him put in an audition. He was great. And then, another audition and another one. And we kept, just seeing other people and him. And it all just boiled down to Brandon. He rose to the top as the best one for the job. And being that I had worked with him previously, I knew he was going to show up. I knew he was going to know his lines. I knew he had no problem with nudity. So all those things coupled with a great performance, he was the number one choice, and he did an amazing job.
And honestly, we're watching the film tonight. One problem that Ashley not so much, but that Ken has is once he's seen the film, he has mouth diarrhea and he spoils everything. So we always wait to watch these until after the interviews. That way we're not being spoilery. So we're we've been anticipating this ever since we've
yeah.
gotten
Yeah.
contact with you. So we're very her especially. I'm like, I'm going to watch this so I know if something were to happen to me, people know where, how this happened.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
excited. You have non-spoiler. Can you give us a little synopsis, a non-spoiler synopsis?
Just about some of the things we can expect out of the
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much covers everything, from Ed Kemper, his early childhood of being locked in the basement from his mother, and, the verbal abuse from, when he was 15 years old. He was living with his grandparents, and he shot them both and killed them. He was sent away to an institution. He spent, he was released on his 18th birthday, and the psychologist said, "Whatever you do, Ed, do not go back to your mother." And the first thing he did was he went back to his mother. So
Oh,
it basically, that kind of put him in the position he was, living with her, and the abuse returned and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of sent him into a spiral of, killing hitchhikers, and then defiling their corpses.
and he had that charm. You could see it in the trailer, which we're about to show you guys. But he's like, bad things are happening around here, and I would just hate for something bad to happen to you. So why don't you just hop in and take a ride with me?
And
So
like they could trust him. They thought
Right.
they could because of the charm.
the charisma and the charm that he
Yeah.
had. So
Right.
You
yeah.
never know what's underneath all that charm.
that's where Pennywise the clown came from.
Yeah.
So real quick,
No,
guys,
and look, the guy was 6'9" with 140 IQ. I mean, he was, a
Yeah.
genius. So he
Brilliant.
knew how to manipulate people, especially, young college co-eds. And, the one great interesting thing about him is he's fessed up to his crimes completely, and, has helped
Yeah.
the FBI and with profiling and all these things through the years. So it's one of the, I'm not going to say he's remorseful, but at the same time, he has done things to help society, whether it's reading books for the blind or whatever it would be, for
Yeah.
audiobooks. He's got a very interesting path that he chose instead of just denying the crimes or whatever. He's owned up to it and has tried to, help profilers and things to catch serial killers. I mean, so he's done a lot of good for to make up for the wrongs that he's done in his life.
Right. Well, and we talked a little bit about the trailer, and I do want to show you guys that trailer right now. So here is the exclusive trailer for Ed Kemper.
Hello, Santa Cruz Police Department.
Malone speaking. I'm all finished now.
Hello?
Anybody there?
There's sunshine in this endless June.
And this apparently was a grisly pattern set in the death of a girl whose body parts were found scattered from here in Santa Cruz to all over the state.
Hey
there. Kind of out here all by yourself, aren't you? I don't want to scare you or anything, but some pretty horrible things have been happening. I don't like the idea of leaving you out here like this.
There's something seriously wrong with him. I mean, I feel guilty as his mother, but he's just not right.
Hey, Ma. I hope you're happy now. I killed Grandma and Grandpa.
To grow and develop as human beings, we must embrace and study what we've done.
You're special. One day, your ma and the whole world will know that.
What are those?
Oh, just some pictures. Just me and some friends.
You got friends.
What the hell, Mom?
What are you doing in there?
Sleeping. All I want is for you to be proud of me.
Bye now. Don't forget me.
Okay, now we'll do all the editing stuff, and
Sure.
we'll come back in real quick. Now, real quick, something I do want to remind everybody of, as horror fans, we love the horror. We think it's amazing. We love everything about it. With this real life type stuff like Ed Kemper, remember, if you are going through stuff, seek some help. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to go out and get help. It does not take very much courage to sit back and fight it on your own. So please, if you're going through something or you know somebody going through something heavy, please try to seek help before something very scary does happen. That's something we always want to add. Horror is awesome. Real life stuff like this is absolutely brutal and terrifying, and you don't wish this on anybody. These aren't characters in a movie. I mean, they are, but I mean, You know, in real life, they're not characters that this is happening to.
Yeah.
Sure.
Chad, how was your experience on set?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was one of those things where, casting is 90% of a director's job. You pick the right people and they know their shit and they're good,
Mhm.
and you get in there, you just sit back and action cut, and the rest is just icing on the cake. And everyone involved was top notch and really got into the material from the script that Steven wrote, which was brilliant. And it was just fun from the moment we were shooting to the moment we're here right now. It was
That's
a
awesome.
blast all around.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about real quick, because you talked about how you directed this, you did a couple rewrites on it. As a writer director, do you find it's easier to direct something that somebody else has written, or do you think that it's easier for you to direct something that you yourself have had a hand in writing?
I think definitely the hand in writing helps because you're kind of going through it, and the more you go through a script and the more you add certain things, whether it's camera shots or dialogue or whatever it might be, it just gets you more tied to the material, which makes it easier to know your stuff when you get on set of what you need, what you can get by with, what you can excise because you got to make your day or whatever it might be. you know I've gotten used to shooting these things, in 10 days for a limited budget, and you move as fast as you can and get what you need. And hopefully, you're happy with it at the end of the day. And on this one, it was just everyone that I've worked with before was kind of involved. So they knew the shorthand way of how I work. And it just made it all that more fun because, we knew what we had to get done. We got it done. And it was the best experience in probably all my films.
One of the most underrated things that people don't talk about enough is the companionship when you've had people that you worked with numerous projects on.
Sure.
Not only do they start to learn the way that you direct, you learn the way that they act. And
Right.
you know what makes them tick. And when you have actors, especially when you're a democratic director and you take influence and you take opinions and stuff like that, people are more genuine to work with you and they want to try harder because they know that your integrity. When you're making movies like this, you're not trying to make $1 million.
Yeah.
You're trying to make
Right.
an amazing film that people are going to remember. You're doing this because it's your passion, not, like I said, you're not going to be putting this in IMAX this week.
Right.
So you're not trying to have a huge studio come in and cut all the corners possible. This is a passion. And that's why we love indie horror like this so much, because you could feel the passion of everybody involved. They're doing it for the right reasons. And this is so amazing. I'm beyond excited to check this out tonight. But in order for you to do direction and writing of horror, one thing we do here on Sledgehammer Horror is called My First Horror Movie. That's the big podcast that we do where we talk to guests about the first horror movie they watched and what it meant to them. But since we got you here now, I want to know, Chad, what was your first horror movie?
Wow. Gosh. The first one. Probably the most vivid, memory of I wouldn't call it a horror film, but seeing Quest for Fire as I was probably 6 years old. I was with my father in the theater, and it vividly the hands getting crushed by the rock, one of the ape people, and it was just like one of those things, the blood and the fingers and the holding on, and then the fall, certain things that spark an instant memory of me. And it was one of those things of again, an interesting childhood of having a father taking to a young kid to this and seeing it on the screen, the nudity, the brutality, and the whatever, and just making quite the impression. And that's one thing that sticks in my mind to this day.
Right.
40 years later.
And it's amazing, where horror started for each of us and how different it can be, but it leads us down the same path to loving horror movies. So, I didn't say it at the beginning, but I should have. We do have Chad's social media links in the description as well. So, Ed Kemper's coming out next week, but this is not the end. Chad's going to be working on many other projects. So to be involved and see what he has coming up, make sure you're clicking these links down in the description and following him on social media. So, any last parting words you want to tell people about the film to get them a little bit more excited?
It's just one of those things that, especially if you like true crime or if you don't like true crime, just an interesting story, and we try to be as faithful as possible and getting the time period correct, the clothing correct, and all those things. And like you said, it definitely is a passion project, and it was a lot of fun doing it. And I hope the audience sees that within it and has a good time watching it.
I do as well. If you guys are watching this after the release of the on VOD. We have those VOD links in the description as well. So make sure you're clicking on those. Go and check this movie out. Like we said, it is a passion project. It's an indie horror film that has its roots in real life. This is based on a true story about a very scary guy that did some very scary things. So you're going to want to check this out. I promise you, you're not going to want to miss it. Chad, please don't go anywhere, my friend. We got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror,
Stay who you are.
and we'll see you guys soon.